The Place Between, Part 2. The road remained the same, its stones and shallow holes wall smoothed by feet and carts and passing days. The river still bent where it always had, water slowing as it left the mountains behind. The farms remained hungry and unpausing, trees held their places without comment. If anyone had asked, Emily would have said nothing was different at all, though she no longer walked the road simply because she had to. Once her steps had followed habit, work set the pace, the weight of baskets decided how quickly the day would pass. Her thoughts drifted not from freedom, but because there was nowhere else for them to go. Now, even when her hands were empty, the path carried a quiet anticipation. To anyone watching, she was simply another set of busy feet among many. She noticed the difference in small ways, in how her eyes lifted sooner when the road curved, and how the shade beneath the old tree felt less like rest and more like a pause she was passing through, in how the river, once an obstacle, had become a threshold to something that waited beyond, quiet and patient. However, wanting to return did not shorten the days between visits to the cavern, to Alawan. The work did not ease. Harvest still demanded her hands and her back and her attention. But whenever the moment could naturally fall, Emily would return, and Alawan would be there. Always in the same space, always waiting. Emily stopped asking questions and learned instead how to speak around the places that hurt. She talked about books, their characters, their places. She talked about the farms, the work that waited, and the land that was far too tired. She spoke, too, of expectations in her world and the quiet pressures placed on a farmer's daughter. Alawan listened, and sometimes, not often, something stirred. Memory would surface, thick and cold, carrying Alawan back toward a world long lost. The moments were never whole, and she did not always share them. Some just carried too much hurt. But she would offer what she could, the memory of tools shaping stone, of hands that knew exactly what to do. When these moments drifted in, Alawan's form sharpened almost without notice. Her posture straightened, her body, her hands, her hair, her curves, only once suggested by mist, began to resolve into something more defined. "I made this place," Alawan said, gesturing around her. "For others, for my..." This was a home for many, a town, like the Edgefield you speak of. The words settled deep into Emily's bones. But this is centuries old, she thought, and did not follow the thought any further. She let it rest beside her instead, unspoken. Perhaps Alawan was mistaken, or perhaps time did not behave here as it did beyond the river. On another visit, Alawan stepped closer to the sun and spoke without prompting. "I don't feel the sun anymore," she said. Emily looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" Alawan tilted her head, searching inward. "I can see it. I know it is there." A pause. "But it does not reach me." Emily swallowed. "What do you feel instead?" Alawan considered this for a long moment. "Stillness," she said, then quieter. "Waiting." Emily's hands curled into the fabric of her skirt as realization arrived. Not like revelation, but like grief, slow, heavy, and certain. "You're..." Emily began, then stopped. The word felt too blunt, too sharp to press against something that had already been broken. Alawan watched her, expression still and soft. "I'm not like you," Alawan said gently, "if that's what you're asking." Emily nodded, eyes burning. I think I knew that." "Yes," Alawan said, and then, after a pause that felt like kindness, "It doesn't frighten me." That was the moment Emily understood. Not that Alawan was dead, but that Alawan had been dead for a very long time. Emily turned away, suddenly overwhelmed by the weight of it. Her breath caught, one hand pressed to stone. The cavern turned small. "I'm sorry," she whispered, though she did not know what she was apologizing for, The death, the forgetting, the simple fact that she was alive when Elowen was not. Elowen did not move closer, but she did not retreat either. She simply stood present, as she always had. "I don't mind," Elowen said quietly. "It just is." She paused, watching Emily struggle for breath. "If it helps," she added, "I don't have to worry about hunger." Emily laughed then, a small, broken sound that startled her as much as anything else had. Tears followed, uninvited, blurring the carved lines of the cavern until everything softened into light and shadow. She wiped at her face, embarrassed. "I didn't expect to." Elowen tilted her head. "Grieve?" Emily nodded. "I didn't even know you back then." Elowen considered this. "But you know me now," she said. That only made it worse. Emily sat for a time, crying in uneven waves that came and went. Elowen moved closer, not so close as to offer touch, but close enough to be present when she had no words. Emily let the full shape of what had been lost fall over her. Not only the loss of a life, but the loss of a future that had never been allowed to unfold, and perhaps something more she was not yet ready to name. When Emily finally stood to leave, her legs felt unsteady. She lingered at the threshold, unwilling to cross back into a world that would pretend nothing had changed. "Elowen," she said softly. "Yes?" "I'll come back," Emily said. Not a promise, just a quiet statement. Elowen nodded once. "I'll be here." Emily crossed the river with tears still drying on her cheeks, the stones cold beneath her feet, the mist thin and ordinary on the path beyond. But nothing felt ordinary now. She had found a friend, a connection in a greedy world that felt true, and she had lost it. Not gone, but changed. The future of it, at least. Elowen was held in place, with no promise beyond this moment, and Emily did not yet know if she could face that truth. That night, lying in her narrow bed, Emily let the tears come again. They were not only for Elowen, but for something else she could not quite separate from the grief, an ache that lingered even as she told herself this was not about her. The future felt uncertain in a way she did not yet know how to hold. Still, she could not imagine letting Elowen slip quietly from her days and turn into something soft with lost. She wanted to be there for her, and beneath that want, unspoken but insistent, was the question of whether she could return to a life that did not include her at all. From then on, the shape of their time together shifted, not in ways Emily could describe or name, but in small negotiations of space and silence, shared smiles without reason, sitting closer, not close enough to touch, but close enough that the air between them felt shared. Elowen did not comment on the change. She answered it by shifting closer, gestures coming nearer than they had before, her gaze holding Emily's just a moment longer. Emily began to speak more freely, the careful editing falling away. She stopped weighing each word, stopped apologizing quite so often. She told Elowen about the dreams she kept buried, the moments that unsettled her, the plans the world held for her, and the men it expected her to marry. Sometimes she spoke about nothing at all, other times she brought a book. She read aloud, sharing adventures and princes and castles and faraway places. She did not expect Elowen to understand the stories, but somewhere along the way, Elowen's features grew complete, a dimple when she smiled, a strand of hair that fell across her face, a freckle darker than the rest. After one of Emily's rambling days, Elowen turned toward her. "You see more than you think." Emily stopped short. "I don't know if I do." "You do," Elowen replied. "You see the land, you see further than those around you." She paused. "You saw this place." Another pause, softer. "You saw me." Emily did not argue. She only smiled. There were moments, brief and unguarded, when Emily became aware of Elowen in different ways. The curve of her body as she leaned against stone, the way her attention seemed to rest only on Emily, the softness of her laughter, too quiet to echo. Emily did not name what stirred in her veins. She did not need to. It existed without explanation, steady and alive beneath her skin. And instead of trying to understand it, all that mattered was this. When she left, she thought of nothing but returning. And when she returned, Alwyn was waiting. One particular day found them standing at the mouth of the cavern, a pale band of light reaching into the cavern between them. Beyond it waited the river, the road, the shape of a life that kept moving. Emily shifted her weight, reluctant, half turned away. "I wish I did not have to leave," she said. The words surprised her by how easily they came. Alwyn's gaze lingered where the sunlight touched stone. "I wish you did not have to leave either," she said. "I know that you must, though." She paused, then added more quietly as if feeling her way through the thought. "When you are gone, time blurs. It loses its edges, and when you return, it forms again." Emily felt something in her heart give way, not breaking exactly, but opening. She wanted to say something as the shadow at their feet crept forward, unkind and inevitable, but no words came. Instead, her hand lifted without permission. She stopped at midway, breath caught, startled by herself. She had never wanted to touch someone like this, to comfort in a way that felt suddenly and unmistakably intimate. Alwyn's attention flickered to the movement. For a heartbeat, she did not turn away. Then, quietly, she did. Not a refusal in the sharp sense of the word, only a small shift, as though stepping aside from something fragile. Emily let her hand fall, confusion stirring. She said nothing, neither did Alwyn. She turned from the cavern and walked the road home. Time moved on, untouched. The next day found her picking beans again, the work familiar beneath her hands, her thoughts circling the same unanswered moment. She could not tell what had passed between them, only that she had felt Alwyn respond, and then step away. Restlessness took root where certainty had not, and Emily crossed the river again, perhaps a little too fast. The water still bit cold around her ankles, the river stones a softer contrast beneath her feet. She reached the cavern threshold and paused, not from fear of the place or who waited inside, but from the quiet fear living inward. Taking a breath, she stepped inside. She tried to tell herself the fear belonged only to the new and the still unknown, but each night, when she closed her eyes, Alwyn's face waited for her in the dark, and each morning she woke with her heart too full to ignore. Alwyn stood where the light faded, as she always did, half in shadow, half in the pale spill from outside. A soft sadness lingered on her beautiful features, but when she heard Emily and looked up, it dissolved, easing into a smile. "You are here," Alwyn said. Emily's throat tightened. "A part of me never leaves." Alwyn held her gaze for a beat too long, not in accusation, in something quieter and closer. Emily blinked. "I need to say something," she said, the words rising before the silence could claim them. Alwyn waited. Emily looked down at her hands, fingers curled into her skirt. "In my world," she said carefully, "people do not speak of this," she hesitated. "They don't even know how." Alwyn's head tilted slightly, patiently. She forced herself to keep going. "When girls grow up, they're told where their life goes. You marry, you keep a home, you have children." Her voice faltered. "You don't question what you want." Alwyn's gaze did not move from her face. Emily swallowed. The next words felt like stepping off a cliff. She exhaled sharp. "I think about you all the time." Alwyn did not speak. Emily pressed on, because if she stopped now, she would fold in on herself. "I think about you when I'm working, when I'm eating, when I'm lying in bed and the world is quiet and I should be thinking of nothing at all." She sighed heavily. "I even think about you when I'm washing my hands, of all things." She could not read Alwyn's expression, could not tell if she understood. Another heavy sigh left her. I think about you the way my books talk of princes. The words tumbled out, named at last. Emily shook her head once, as if trying to steady herself. I know what I was meant to want, she whispered. I know what I was meant to imagine for myself. Her breath caught. But what I feel doesn't go there. It goes to you, and... She swallowed. And you are a woman. The words should have tasted wrong in her mouth. Instead, there was a strange rightness in letting them go, even with the quiet fear that Elowen might look away. Instead, Elowen took one slow step closer, the air tightening between them with listening. You gave me myself again, Elowen said quietly. You found me where I was lost and did not turn away from what you saw there. She held Emily's gaze. I did not have to speak to you when you first entered the cavern. I remember not speaking before. But there was something in you, something my soul recognized even then. Sadness touched her expression, gentle and unguarded. Still, I knew what I could not offer you. I knew there was no future I could place in your hands, and you deserve a future filled with breath. Emily shook her head. Why must I keep reaching for a future that does not want me? She gestured toward the cabin mouth, toward the world beyond it. That world does not hold anything I wish to grow into. Her voice softened. I think I knew that long before I found you. I was always looking, stepping off the path, looking beyond the river, not because I was lost, but because I was searching for where I fit. She met Elowen's eyes. I was searching for you. A tear formed on Elowen's cheek, not water but mist, loosening and fading as it fell. If I had breath, Elowen said, you would steal it from me. Her voice trembled, only slightly. You look at me as though I am not ruin, and I do not know how to stop myself from loving you for it. The truth of their words rested with them, no longer sharp or fragile. Emily stepped closer. This time there was no restraint. Her hand lifted slowly, and Elowen did not move away. Elowen, Emily's voice faltered. I know, Elowen said, lifting her hand to mirror Emily's. The moment stretched, their hands moving toward one another, intent on meeting in the place between them. But Elowen's fingers passed through Emily's, like mist slipping through branches. There was no cold, no sensation at all, simply nothing. Their gazes fell to the empty space where touch should have been. Confusion settled first, then understanding, and finally a quiet sadness. The cavern did not change. The mist did not stir. The world did not punish them. It simply remained true. Emily's tears came silently, unstoppable. She pressed her mouth tight, trying not to make a sound, but grief did not care for quiet. Elowen's expression broke open then, not with horror, but with a quiet devastation. I thought this might be true, she said. Her hand hovered near Emily's wrist, trembling with restraint. I thought if I wanted it hard enough, if I remembered hard enough, it might become possible. Emily shook her head, crying. I wanted to touch you, she said, her voice raw. I wanted to know what your skin felt like. I wanted... She swallowed, open and honest. I wanted to kiss you. I have dreamed of it. It's all I've wanted. Elowen's breath caught. Then she did something unexpectedly tender. She stepped closer, close enough that the air between them felt as though it should have been shared breath. She lifted her hand, not to touch, but to trace the space beside Emily's cheek, as if learning the shape of her. Close your eyes, Elowen murmured. Emily did. Elowen spoke, her voice slow and deliberate, moving with the care of touch. If I could, she said softly, I would step close enough that your breath would catch against mine. Emily's body trembled. My hand would move along your face, Elowen continued. She closed her eyes briefly as if following the motion herself. You would feel my fingertips there, gentle and warm, resting against your cheek. Her voice lowered, steady and intent. Then I would lean in. Emily's lips parted without her meaning to. My lips would meet yours, Elowen murmured, softly at first, not rushing, just learning the shape of you, the way you respond. Emily's breath turned uneven, caught between wanting and waiting. I would let it linger, Elowen said, her voice threading closer, long enough that time would still. She paused. Then I would deepen the kiss, slowly, letting you feel the weight of it change. Her voice was so near Emily's lips now it barely seemed to travel. I would want nothing more than to remain there, another breath, but I would let it soften again. I would let it rest, until I had pulled back just enough to stay close, allowing the moment to remain exactly where it was. Elowen's voice softened further, heartbreakingly careful. And when you opened your eyes, she said, you would see what you felt reflected back at you. Emily's tears slipped from her closed eyes and down her cheeks in a quiet stream. She did not want to open her eyes, afraid she might break something too perfect, but she did. Elowen's hand hovered near her mouth, held there by an impossible longing. She watched Emily, desire and grief braided together, unbearable and beautiful all at once. The cavern had not changed. The mist still gathered softly along the stone. The light still reached only part way in, as it always had. Nothing had been taken from the world. Nothing had been given back. Yet something between them had found its shape at last. Not fragile now, not unnamed. It existed without asking what could come of it, or how long it might be allowed to remain. Emily did not step away. Elowen did not turn aside. They stayed together in the stillness that followed wanting, in the place where love was known, even when it could not be held.